What is good, YouTube? Is Aaron back here with the channel, and today we've got On the Bubble, episode 20. Our honorary third co-host or guest, however he'd like to be referred to these days. Rahan did not make it, so we found another third. The diversity of this podcast has unfortunately got a bit lower, but we got a great mind to replace him. How are you doing, Santoli?
I'm doing good. Excited for 300th, I think.
You think you're gonna get there in one
Yeah,
piece, right?
we will get there. I mean, I guess we don't know yet, but that was not my concern.
All right, fair
The
enough.
unknowns of the format, not the unknowns
I
of the
mean,
road.
that's what we're gonna talk about today. We've got like Richmond discussion, a little bit of burst protocol. Otherwise, yeah, that's about it. How are you doing, Logan?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm excited to play 300th. I was a little skeptical.
You said it
Skeptical?
right.
I can't speak. It sounded weird. But now I'm pretty excited for the format. I think I have a deck I like. I think I have some interesting cards that people aren't playing that I like as well.
Alrighty. Before we get going, big shout out. My sister, it's her birthday. Happy birthday, Amy. And she also made these designs. She's a talented GFX person. So thank you to you, my sister. Otherwise, yeah, let's hop into the Yu-Gi-Oh. So, first things first, Burst Protocol just released. Sneak was, I guess, it's this past weekend. Official release date is what, tomorrow?
Friday.
This is Friday. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going like I think I mean like we can break down the set. I think it's like better than it has been in the past. Like at least the secret allocation is a little bit better, right? Like there's like some top end cards that are gonna hold some value, so you're gonna make some money off of your product. But I'm not like it's not like a format defining set. I think like there's some good cards. Like we got Spencer, we've got Sheena, which is interesting. We've got Maroon, but overall I'm not like my god this set shapes the format. Sintoli, have you had any thoughts on Burst Protocol? So
I think the set's overall pretty good. The big thing is that you have a bunch of cards that are engine dependent that are good, which I think is not the way to make a set that's completely crazy. Like I think the sets that are insane are sets that have like insane staples because that means everyone wants to buy them. That being said, with the Radiant Typhoon as well as the different Draco Tail support, I think it's at least good from that perspective of there are chase cards in the set, which is nice. The one thing I will say is there's not super large amount of good decks that are getting support. I think that the Elven Oath stuff will age a bit better, but there are a lot of the other kind of roguish strategies in the set that are just a bit too weak for my liking. So it's I think better than the sets we've had of recent, but overall still just a average, slightly above average set.
and compared to the past few sets being in the gutter, I think average is a welcome adjustments. How about you, Logan?
Yeah, I think the set definitely changes the meta like a good amount, and also like kind of lays dirt for like future decks going forward. I think the Elf Note deck is pretty close to being good. I think the Dark Lord deck is also pretty close to being good, although I don't think that deck gets anything else in the future that I know of. And then
I
obviously
mean,
like all
that
the
could
outbound. What's up?
that could always get more fairy support at any point, which is nice.
Yeah,
Just
Mhm.
like
the
just
generic
generic
cards.
fairy support. I think the cards that they got for that deck are pretty high quality. We'll probably talk about that more later. But I think it's definitely a better core set than what we've been getting. It feels like the last couple of core sets, or actually for a while, they just haven't really done like a whole lot. There's like one impactful card and then maybe like one semi-staple card. But this set has like some real staple potential generic cards. And also just like a lot of interesting engine cards that are pretty splashable.
I mean, like you said, like the past, like all like the meta defining decks of the past like year and a half have come from the side Justice
Hmm.
Hunters and whatever the Malice set was, Malice Rizio, like those two. So
Crossover.
it's nice. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, crossover. Thank you. So yeah, it's nice to see some meta relevance coming out of these decks. Like, and even when we had like Habakiri come out, it was a super, right? So like that set just was like dirt. So in terms of product allocate or like where the money in a set is, it's nice to have it being on the top end compared to where it has been because that's been a concern of stores and OTSs. Yeah, I'm not gonna get too deep into it. I think this is a step in the right direction, so we'll see if they can maintain the momentum. We'll look at Maze. Blazing Dominion, I think, is the next one where we've got like that broken hand trap that comes out at some point, so we'll talk about that in the. But it looks like 2026 is already off to a better start than most of 25. So, yeah, so we're going to do some overhype, or we're going to do overhype and sleeper cards on Burst Protocol, and then we're going to hop into a meta discussion. So Sleeper was the one that I prompted everyone with, so we'll start with Sleeper. Santoli, what did you bring up?
Um, my dog ate my homework.
Uh, you had
I
you
don't
said
think
you had
there's.
one.
I think there's a lot of other cards that are decent, like playable. Like commented that the rogue decks don't have a super high power level. And I mean that from the sense of selling things. You don't need to really buy anything from those archetypes. But a lot of them are playable. Like I think the dragons is playable. I actually looked at Magnet Warriors a bit more, and like it's definitely a deck that if someone wants to just learn that deck and try to improve it, like you can definitely top a regional with those decks. So I think it's just the kind of unknown archetypes in the set are decent. But I think all the kind of cards that you'd expect to be good are worse than people think, as opposed to better them. And that's not necessarily a problem. Like people are hyping up a lot of the secrets, which is fine. But I think it's just a lot of the kind of rogue archetypes actually did get reasonable support.
I mean, if this is like a fantastic Genesis set, then I think it also accomplishes kind of what Konami's looking for. I think like if the meta gets some support and then we get like 2 Genesis archetypes out of it, then like more can you really ask for, right? Logan, what did you bring to the show? Anything
Yeah,
interesting?
the only card that I felt like fit the category of like sleeper card was the penguin guy, first penguin. Um,
That's neat.
Before the set dropped, I never really saw anybody talk about this card. And once the set dropped, all my mermail friends were like clamoring over this card. It is good. It's an extender. Yeah, it's a start, like a semi-starter as well. It just comes down to how good is mermail, which I think it's okay. I think it's playable. And you definitely play 3 of this card in the deck, I believe. It pretty much just searches out your entire deck with any other water. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of with you guys on like I think more so the cards that people thought would be really good are just not going to be as good. I think like Forbidden Crown is a good example of that. But
Gonna head the segment. So
yeah,
mine is so DDD is not a deck that I think is gonna ever be playable until either Fua gets banned or um like that deck finds a way to beat it. Like that, unfortunately, it's not something. But it actually got a new fusion in this set. It's a level 6 that like is from graveyard, like from the field.
hmm
That card is above average for like what the deck looking to do. Um, and the other one is I mean like I don't think the rocket stuff is like sleeper, but right now I don't think it's very good. But like the deck getting a counter trap I think is Eat World Reboot. It's searchable in Blazing Dominion, so some point in the future that deck is probably going to be playable. It's going to look very different from the Dragon Link piles that you've seen in the past. So like the list now are playing Dominance Impulse, which is something you never could really do before with fights in the deck. So we'll see if they get Savage or whatever Borolo, not Savage, Chaotic Ruler, like any of like the actual good level 8 sinkers. But until that kind of happens, I think the deck's going to be in a tough spot just because there aren't enough inboard pieces right now. Sleeper, we discussed. So yeah, no sleepers, underwhelming, but overhyped cards. You kind of already hinted at Forbidden Crown, Logan. Is that just a card that you haven't seen be impactful, or why do you come to that conclusion so early?
yeah, I think most of the Yu-Gi-Oh community is starting to or has already kind of agreed that the card is a little bit overhyped. I think the card is just basically good right now because of the Radiant Typhoon deck. I think if that deck didn't exist, Crown would probably see almost zero play. It's in almost all situations worse than like a Forbidden Droplet, and it's somewhere between like Droplet and Chalice overall as a card. It definitely has some more utility, but it has more downside. In a format with like Yummy or something, it becomes better as a go first card because it's like a pseudo dimensional barrier in a way. You just like hit the first name that they summon. Um, but in terms of cards that I think are like actively overhyped that the community hasn't exactly caught on to yet, I think the Magus' cards like Spenta and stuff. I think those cards are just not as good as people think. I don't know if people are trying to be like contrarian and just going away from like the normal Draco Tail list and trying to find something new. But I think all the Magus' cards just play into every hand trap. They play into Nibiru more. They play into Ash Blossom more. They play into Perulia more. And going second, they're just like not good cards at all. They take up like I think 6 or 7 cards in your extra deck. Um, it I'm not too sold on those. You also have to put in a brick in your deck. I think very quickly those cards will people will try them out and they'll die probably before the 300th even comes around.
I'd be surprised if like you didn't see that those like whatever a few variants of that in top 64. Like you can play Magistus without even like the Draco Tail cards. Like I think those cards are high quality, but I agree that they definitely add clunk to a deck that already can have. I'm not sold on them being like defining like it. I don't think they're like the obvious best way to play the deck, but I think they definitely add a lot of problems that you've identified, and if
Mhm.
they end up fixing enough, if, like are the answer to like the current problems that they justify.
It's
Santoli, how
definitely
about you?
not a. It's not a bad deck. I just think it's strictly worse.
Yeah, that's fair. But
I
yeah,
think
with
it's more of
this,
a list issue than the cards individually. Like the cards read pretty good in a vacuum. It's just in Draco Tail, you're adding clunkiness. It's like how much do you want to dedicate your extra deck spots to sacrifice? How much do you want to like how many engines do you actually want to play together in a main deck? It takes away non-engine space. So I think it's less so that the cards are bad and more just the way people are playing them right now aren't refined yet. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they either see play in a different deck in the future or that Draco Tail is able to play it, but with a better list than kind of what the first drafts are.
yeah, I will say like I've seen Perulia like like whatever like the standard Draco Tail list I think is maining Fua and some number of Perulia, and you are now adding whatever a card that is a guaranteed special from hand if you want it. So it adds like another one or two draws off Perulia. So if you're trying to minimize that card's impact, then adding Spenta into your kind of productive to that. Um, any other cards that you identify as overhyped, Santoli?
Just talk about Crown more because I think Logan started with it, but to give a better reason is that card's just strictly not a go for second card. Like it's a glorified Chalice going second. I think that is an argument it's worse than Chalice. And Chalice is playable, but usually when you're playing it, it's just for a clean trade and you want to push very effectively. And I don't think the fact that Radiant Typhoons is a deck really changes anything. Like, yes, you want to play quick plays, but it's still just a low value card. And like Chalice is playable, so it's not like it's awful, but it's much more close to like how often Chalice would be played than Droplets. The one thing I will say though is that I'm talking about when it's going second. It's a very good first card. And I think that unlike a lot of the counter traps people play, it checks a lot of turn zero plays. So if your opponent's dropping a Zune on you, a Holy Sue, or either going for Artharion, something like that, Crown is able to stop those. While if you had something like a counter trap that it would not be able to interact with it at all, and then your opponent pulls ahead turn zero, and now you have this counter trap that doesn't actually provide enough value because your opponent's pulled ahead. So I think that card actually may find a niche in side decks as a go first card because it's essentially a judgment going first and a Chalice going second, and having a judgment that's can't hit spells but hits the turn zero monsters, I think can definitely find a niche in the metagame. So I think it's overhyped now in the terms of people are main decking it. I think it is a very solid side deck card. And it can be definitely like a 3 of in the side deck in some formats going forward.
Yeah, I mean, when you put it like that, like a card that is very good going first and like still acceptable going second, like it's not like what you would identify as a main deck card, but like I could see it like this is a card that like is a little too good to side deck, or like a card that like I don't know, like is it worth committing to the side deck slots to it? Maybe. Um, and I think in decks where going second you can kill, like let's say you're playing as Yummy and you just like freeze a Snatchy, like can you put game over a Snatchy? I think that is something that you could look into. I think the decks in the meta right now currently don't have those capabilities for efficient or like often. Like the Radiant Typhoon deck is not going to kill through a Snatchy. They're gonna kill through an open board. So that doesn't seem like it coincides with Radiant Typhoon's game plan of trying to grind and develop advantage. But maybe in like a more aggressive deck, like I'm not sure. Like I don't think Sky Striker can do it
Memento.
either. But yeah, I mean theoretically Draco Tail. What's the deck that just puts
Memento's
a bunch
probably
of
a good
damage?
one because you
Yeah,
can just attack directly. You just leave it there.
yeah. And the other thing is like the decks that may struggle going first. Like again, like I think Sky Striker is like similar to Radiant Typhoon, but may have a few differences where like the deck doesn't have like the best going first, so another deck that can maybe needs that additional push going first, but it has some utility going second. So I think the card's good. I don't think it's main worthy in every deck. I agree that drop it overall is better, but I'm warming up to it. It's not in any of my list right now, but I could definitely see a world where it does because, like you said, like the going first prowess of checking Azuna and Arthur line, like all that can I think worth it for sure. When so many like turn zero plays right now. And for me in this regard, I think Sheena is like appropriately hyped at this point. Like there's nothing crazy in that regard. I think y'all covered most of like the relevant stuff. I'm kind of like right now. But yeah, I think there's like the two like cards that were like two of the most expensive cards in the set and had like a lot of discussion going into it, but no one is like otherwise. Yeah, I think it in terms of yeah, I'm excited to see how this set changes things, but I think Alvaz is appropriately hyped. That card is very good. It's splashable in a lot of different engines. Like, all right, Santoli, give me your combination of it.
I mean, I think it's very good. But every time I try a different engine in Draco Tail, the best cards in the Draco deck are always the Draco Tail cards.
Sure.
Because like as soon as they start fusion something, they're insane. And like I said, like I think Alvaz is a very good card, but it doesn't seem like this. It doesn't seem like you're just increasing the deck's power level by like so much. It introduces its own problems. And it seems kind of like people compare it to X-Razel. It's not X-Razel. Like, that card's one of the best cards ever printed. It's a very solid card, but it's not one of the like, oh my god, this I can't believe this card's ever printed. Like I can believe it quite easily, and it feels like appropriately power leveled for where the game is at.
I don't think I agreed with that. I don't think it's super oppressive in the Dragotail deck, but I think it's a card that's going to be very prominent for a while because of it is guaranteed access to Fallen the Virtuous if you draw it. It makes Brandon Infusion not have a Garnet in your deck whenever you're playing it. And the like if you play open Ecclesia and are not locked into level 8s, which obviously you can be and it's fine. But now you have like a rank 4 engine where you can like Fiendsmith Bridge. Like there's so many different things that this engine can do. Or this card rather, that I think going to be seen for a while, and I don't really see like obviously like I said, Draco Tail. It's not like a format defining card. It is very good. Like if you're playing Draco Tail, it's now on your list. And it doesn't change the core identity of it being a Draco Tail deck. Like you're not playing a Branded deck with Draco Tail. You're still playing a Draco Tail centric deck. But I think that card is splashable in some other archetypes. It wouldn't surprise me if that card is in a non-Draco Tail deck that ends up top 8ing any of the 300th. So I'm interested to see how that pans out personally.
I think that card is also a little bit underrated. Like going second in the Draco Tail mirror match, that card is fairly oppressive. It can like generate a lot of pressure. Just like into the back row. There's nothing really on the Draco Tail M board aside from like Secretarian if they made it that really deals with like just summoning Albaz and then like synchroing right there. And getting to Ecclesia. It's a good way to like get around Flame. Gets you follow for the next turn. You can send the Dogma, can also give value. I think in simplified game states or like game states where your opponent didn't absolutely full combo you, it's a very, very powerful card, like even going second.
And then it just like adds another resource in the form of Ecclesia to add back. Yeah.
Yep. Also, the Albo Nautis is like also just that being a threat is really nice right now in this meta.
I think very good card. I think it'll be format defining for at least up until Nats, if not longer. Like we'll kind of see how it shapes up. But
For sure.
very good card. Alrighty, so I think this is the yes, I did. Alrighty, so this is the tier list that Santilli posted. I think a day of the ban list.
Yep.
I wanted to give him his props. I don't know why I screenshot like that. Unlucky. But he like this is I think the best tier list I saw, and he posted it like 8 hours later. So shout out to you, my friend. You're very on point with everything. So kind of tell me how you came to these conclusions, and we'll like obviously go about like adjustments that you make now and kind of how your testing is going. But like you were, I think, pretty spot on with everything, and you made those conclusions very. Now let us know how you came to that process.
I think it's just there's no real secret with it. It's just I kind of tried to understand how the deck's play styles are, and their issues, and as well as the success they had before. Like that's why some of the kind of runner-up ones are weird. Like Orcus and Memento are both high, but I think they just are decks without flaws. I think I put decks with flaws a little bit lower in general. Which is why like Mitsu's lower because even though a deck I think may be better than when it opens good hands and like something like Orcus or Memento, I just think it doesn't open them consistently enough. Or something like Yummy has issues. But I think the big thing is just the top 3 decks are pretty accurate. And I think most people kind of guess this. The big thing is I think I put VS third when people were putting it as the best deck. Like as soon as I saw VS, even though I underrated it a lot last set, having played it at a YCS being Bologna last set, I did actually have a lot of time on it. And I did identify while the deck is good, it was a nerf. And I think that people originally looking like at this was like, oh, the deck got better now. We have more raises, we have more stake, we have more consistency. It's like it's not better, even though it has, I think, been popular in testing, for sure. consistency issues are there, and it just does have some weaker hands that can struggle into Detail or Radiant Typhoon going second or even first sometimes. Detail and Radiant Typhoon, I think, are kind of the expected decks. Like be putting Detail first, something I need to get Pam back for that one. Radiant Typhoon, I think that the early lists were really rough, and I think I'm still seeing a lot of rough lists that I really just dislike. But I think as time goes on and I'm seeing better lists, there's a lot of decisions you can make with this deck. This deck can play a lot of interesting tech cards that others aren't playing, and I think that that's appropriately placed. I'm still really happy with the run-up category. I think these are all very solid decks that will have some level of success. You know, Gemini, Orcus, Memento, they're not going to be flashy and topping necessarily a lot, but I think that they are just solid picks. The good decks and the fine decks, I think, is when you can start mixing things up. Also, shout out to me for saying For Hire For Hire Kane was unplayable. I think that just kind of it was hyped for a week, and I don't know. I haven't seen anyone really do anything with it. Like obviously the K9 cards got hit, but even before that, I think it was nothing special. But the good decks and fine decks, I think, can be mismatched a little bit, and I think it's less so of me critiquing my list and more so the format's just really open. It'll come down more player strength and who has a good meta read early, then the deck's power level just outright, dictating where it goes.
What are your initial thoughts on this?
First off, this is definitely the best tier list I've seen. Secondly, this is the only tier list I've seen. I do think everything on this list is pretty accurate. I think if I had to nitpick anything, it would maybe be Yummy. I think there's definitely more legs to Yummy than people thought. There's stuff that you can do with the Tri Brigade cards. There's stuff you can do with the Radiant Typhoon cards. I think if you're playing a Yummy deck, Engraver should be in your deck. Like if you're not playing the Tri Brigade cards, you're not playing Radiant Typhoons, but you're playing Yummy cards, Engraver should be in your deck somewhere. It bridges you into Caesar. You could play the full Fiendsmith package if you want. You could play the Soulful Chord cards with Engraver as well, which is what I had been testing a lot. The only problem I really have with Yummy isn't necessarily the deck; it's just how it's positioned in the meta. I don't think the matchup against Dracotail is nearly as winnable as it ever was before. Virtuous is like pretty devastating, like playing into Virtuous, and then obviously against Radiant Typhoon, a lot of them are on Crown, like we said, and all the board breakers just trade really well into Yummy. And really, the only matchup, like favorable matchup, I think it has is VS K9, and I think that deck's already starting to fall out of the meta. So I don't think it would be crazy to see Yummy in top 8 at the 300th. But most likely it will top. I'm like 100% certain it will top somewhere. I don't know for sure how deep it'll go, but I definitely think it should be above, like probably above Gem Knight is where I'd put it as like the 6th or 7th best deck. Although Gem Knight does have some legs too, but I worry about that deck in a YCS setting where people find out that you're playing it and they like start sending you first, and like you can maneuver your end boards to be better into Gem Knight if you know what you're doing. But yeah, other than that, I think this is like very accurate. Maybe Malice could be higher. I saw in I think it was a Kong's card tournament.
Don't say that. Don't say
The
that.
Malice deck was the second most topping deck in that tournament, I believe, which is interesting. The combos don't really change that much. It's just mostly worse in the hand traps and like you have a little bit less value. But I think the deck is still good. It plays the best non-engine in the game, Shifter and Impulse. So, but yeah, I think it's a pretty good list. Magnet Warriors, I saw did something in the OCG recently. Maybe that deck has something going for it, but I don't know if we have all the cards for it or not yet.
I think we're missing one, maybe.
I think
I
so
have
too. Yeah.
looked at it briefly. That's definitely like a regional level deck. Like I could definitely see myself taking it to regional at some point, and give me 3 tries, I'll top one of them.
Yeah,
It's just to
sorry.
add on. It's funny what you said about Yummy because like that was my big thing, which is that I don't even hate the power level deck. It was just the position of it is
Yeah.
more my concern than where it is. Like I think it's more likely that you tell me in 6 months this deck is topping a lot than it will be at this event.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think Yummy's the only one that I'm gonna agree with. So like I'm not a believer in Orgus Memento Gemini personally. I think Yummy should definitely probably like that runner up tier. Otherwise, yeah, this is good. Like I think Mitsurugi's, I don't know, maybe a little bit better, but I haven't seen a list that really interests me, so like I can't really just like justify that argument. Like Murakumo's obviously still very good, but when you have less of a grind and Dracotail got a better grind, it seems like it's pretty difficult to justify uh picking that deck for an event. Like even if you have Impulse now, right? Like this deck has like even more ways of fusion summon, so it seems like it's not really positioned well. It is
RT
difficult for
also
me
seems
to.
like a horrible matchup for that deck.
Which one, sorry?
RT seems like a horrible matchup for
Oh,
Mitsu.
I think
Like,
I
you're a
watched a
clunky deck.
match of that too. Yeah, like Radiant Typhoon checks a lot of decks that, like I played VSK9 and I was playing a very Vanquish Soul heavy list. Like I wasn't playing Force Release, and it was like playing the trap in the main. And Rahan, I think I actually posted this video, and Rahan just like in draw phase wiped my entire board. Um, I think I like played into Super Poly because I didn't know that was a thing game one or whatever. But yeah, I just like had no interactions, and then Vanquish Soul. Yeah, with one Holy Sue, like once that card's gone, the game gets pretty rough. So yeah, that's a deck that I'm definitely a bit lower on than I thought. I think it's probably still the third best deck, just based off of every other deck having like pretty glaring issues, and being able to high roll Holy Sue is better than a lot of these other decks inherently. Um, but it wouldn't surprise me if Crystron Canine is now like the actual best Canine deck just because of how potent that deck is going first, and I think Vanquish Soul is like particularly impressive going second now either. They both probably have a similar non-engine count, so like who's to say that Crystron doesn't just like pull its way through just based off of like Spell Cancer or just like whatever 3 or 4 negate inboard plus hand trap or two. So yeah, I think this is good. Yummy definitely also has the interesting aspect of being splashable. Like you said, there's Fiendsmith, there's Sulfa, there's what we Drift playing with Radiant and Tri Brigade. Like there's a lot of different aspects to this deck. So like I think you're looking at just like pure Yummy, like all the way towards the bottom. But once you start adding in those potential other layers of interaction and consistency, then I think the deck probably has potential to be higher. I don't think I would ever put it in the top. I think it is at best probably third, and that would be someone can like finds a list that like sways me. But currently, like when you start adding more engines, you just add more bad draws to a deck that I think already struggles with drawing the right number of good cards, like 2 engine, 2 non-engine, and then like usually a brick. So like if you were able to minimize that brick draw, then a little more interested. So any final thoughts, Antoli, on this? Like you want to give any like what would like the biggest adjustment you think based off of whatever a week and a half of time between now and then?
I think just the good decks, I think I may have missed off a bit. Like Yummy can definitely go higher. I think Razor actually can go higher as well. I think it just has a good matchup spread. It's a pretty degenerate deck. Overall, you can do some cool things, and by cool I mean just like sending your opponent first post side, so they have 6 chummies, and you can just efficiently crack a board. It's a great user of Retaliancy. And then Christian Horse can go down a bit. I actually tested that deck. I don't think it's bad by any means, but Detail is a rough matchup still. Sky Sugar can definitely go down a bit. Malice can go up. So I think that the top decks I'm happy with, like even stuff like Orcus and Memento, I'm pretty happy with where they are. Like I said, I don't think that a lot of the known players will gravitate to those decks, but I think that these are just decks that people will play. They're solid decks, and they'll do their thing and top a fair bit. So it's just kind of mixing up the good and the fine decks a little bit better.
Logan, where like so you gave some thoughts. What are your final thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I think the format is going to be definitely more of like a 2 deck format than it is like a 10 deck format that people were thinking. It really feels like it's going to be just like Radiant Typhoon against Dracotail, and then you have like the occasional decks on the outside. Maybe for the 300 that'll be more diverse, but I think the more weeks that go on, I think it'll narrow down just to like 2 or 3 decks, and there will probably always be like one rogue deck that cycles in and out that has like a favorable matchup against whatever deck is winning at the time, whether it be Radiant or Dracotail. But I really just don't feel like any of the other decks outside of those like keep up in the same way and have the same card quality and also have like the same strengths into like different hand traps. And the other thing is too is like Radiant and Dracotail just don't have like a lot of silver bullets against them. Like I sat for like 2 hours the other night trying to find cards that I wanted to side against Dracotail, and it's just not that easy. Everything is just like pretty mediocre. Like you, you have like Droplet, you have like Double Cyclone and stuff. They're okay. They're not always enough. Retaliating Sea got like a lot worse. Yeah, I was really in the depths looking for some cards, and I think I found one. I don't know if it's good yet. I have to test it. I'm not gonna say it quite yet, but there's just not a lot for these 2 decks that I found. I think that just like puts them above the other decks.
And going
Cherries
first,
is
you've
not
obviously
good. Don't test that. Cherries
What
is
card?
not good. Cherries.
Cherries.
I know you're thinking about cherries.
Cherries?
It's not winter cherries.
That card's cool.
Logan is a staunch hater of Winter Cherries. He would never consider it.
That's true. I'm a staunch hater of Winter Cherries.
Really?
I was gonna say, going first, we've got DDG for Draco Tail. I don't think it can still do anything against that. DeFi as well. Radiant Typhoon, there's always Magic Deflector, right? Like, you can... That can't do a thing under Magic Deflector, which... I guess, like, you can change
Yeah.
it.
Also, yeah. Did you mention Mistaken Arrest? I didn't hear.
I did not know, but that is another card that I
Yeah,
think
that card is crazy good. I like going first. There's cards that are good against both these decks, but more so like going second into them, it's very difficult to find cards that are good into them.
I think the
Agreed.
problem with some of the other, like even with Deflector or DDG, is like a lot of them are just playing heavy gasless, and so you're not even getting hand traps. So if unless you're playing 3 copies of them, that thrust is not a reliable thrust anymore.
Yeah.
And so I don't even know if there's
I-
that many good go first cards. Like Fissure's obviously a good one, but then again, it's like, are you just playing 3 Fissure on your side? Like what happens if you play against Vanquish Soul? Do you now have
Yeah,
more
that-
go first cards on the side? Like, and this is kind of nice when I sing with the diverse formats. Like even if we do end up having 2 top tier decks, and then the rest of them are playable but weaker, just the diversity will force a lot of this pseudo-esque silver bullets out of the format. I think that's better, and then you have more interesting games like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think this... I would be incredibly shocked if it was a 2-deck format so quickly. I think for the 300th, you're gonna see a bunch of BS. Like, it's gonna be top 64 for, I assume, all 3 of these. I can't verify Mexico, but I think, like, for the 250th, it was very large for regions. I expect 14 decks, if not more, in each top 64.
Yeah.
And I would be surprised if it's less than, like, 4 in each top 8. Like, there's gonna be, like, a Lunalight, there's gonna be a Blue Eyes in South America, right, Logan? Like, we already know what's gonna happen there.
Mitsu in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. Mitsu's gonna top Europe. Malice is gonna top Europe as well. Like, I can already guarantee it somehow, some way. Malice is gonna top 8 Europe.
100%.
Yeah. And then what's in the US? Like, Try Yummy, whatever Triff brings. Like, there's gonna be some BS that he somehow makes it in with. So, anyway, he's going to Mexico. So, Santoy, what are you bringing? Just Vanquish Soul will make that deck top somehow.
No, I've tried 5 premier events for that deck. I think it's time to not try again. The one was unfortunate. Like I go 9-2 at Raleigh, we don't top in middle of Snake Eye format. Like that's kind of
so you should have that's a disgusting one to
Should have
not
been
top
one.
considering the format.
It was disgusting not that I didn't top it, and the other problem was like half the top cut was after the middle ban list before lead. So half the top cut was like these stun-ish decks, like Pearly, Flu, Lab, like all cash, and the Vanquish Soul matchups like 90-10 in all of them. It's like 10% you brick, the other 90% you win. So like I actually had a good top cut deck too. It's just wasn't meant to be that one.
Yeah,
Wasn't meant to be.
Unfortunately.
I actually think Richmond, a lot of the decks that do well will be like more standard basic decks, because I think right now a lot of even like the good players are really just like overthinking this format and kind of outsmarting themselves. I think you just have to like build a pretty standard deck, find a couple of non-engine cards that are better than what your peers are doing, and then just play better. That's just kind of where the format is.
I think early events, your goal should always be your deck has the lowest amount of flaws. Like it doesn't have to have the best ceiling. It's just you walk into an event and it's like you walk away and you don't think that there's so many problems with the deck. And like that was my kind of Christian Horse deck at Providence, which was like I don't know how well it aged. Like as Malice and Razor got more defined, it was definitely worse. But it's like the deck combo, like the combos were simple, it worked well. The non-ninja was simple, it worked well. You're putting a lot of people in a new format and taking the chummy challenge, and it just works because of that. And that deck I think had it has brickiness issues to some degree and whatnot, but the deck didn't have any overly glaring flaws despite the weaker power level, and I think that's why I had success with it there. I think it's going to be a similar event going forward for this one, like you said, where it's just like you don't need to go and create the best deck in the room. It's just like if you feel like your technical play is competent, play something that doesn't feel awful, consistent, and if it feels consistent and doesn't have any like overly glaring issues, and then you should have success with it because people's decks are going to have glaring issues that you can take advantage of, and
For sure.
yours won't.
All right, so when we get into that discussion, and y'all have been hyping the Radiant Typhoon deck, I'm going to go on my little complaint with this deck. So I just don't understand how this deck is consistent enough to win 13 of 15. You play like 9 good cards, and you can't even guarantee Crocy as a starter half the time because you can't use all of your quick play spells going first. So this deck, I think, has been the back-to-back finals of Jib's Iron Man tourney. Shout out to him. I played in that one that we got. But like that deck is back-to-back finals. I think 2 things maybe or one major thing I think is benefiting that deck is there's no time. That's another deck. This is a deck that I think will have massive issues when it comes to playing in a tournament with double losses. Like I don't know how consistently Radiant Typhoon as a breaker deck is going to like win an event because of that. Like you have to be extremely proficient with your deck, and know when to scoop like at optimal times so consistently, and like your opponent also respect your going first board enough to do it. Like I think this deck is it has a lot going for it. I think it's very splashable. Like there's a lot of good things the Radiant Typhoon engine has. I think the pure deck is going to struggle pretty heavily in a long event. And if this is like nothing against anyone, but like if you're just like that's like an average player or like an above average player even, like if you don't practice this deck to like the utmost degree, you are just going to double loss yourself, I think, way too consistently to like actually perform well with this deck. And I may be wrong, but that is my initial impressions. Like you struggle to be consistent with this deck, and then also on top of that, like you have to play at an above average pace because of how long I think all of your games take.
I think one thing to keep in mind
Sorry,
with
go ahead.
consistency. Sorry, the one thing to keep in mind with consistency is that this is gonna be a word comment until I explain it, which is that consistency only matters when you brick. And what I mean by that is if you have 100 people go and take Radiant Typhoon to a tournament, you know, 50 of them, let's say 50% of them are going to have below average draws and not have a good turn just because they're not opening enough stars enough. But when you're opening, you know, some people are going to get lucky if there's that many people playing the deck and they're going to open good starters, and then the deck feels amazing. And I think this is why you can have decks that are very inconsistent still top consistently, because if you have enough people playing the deck, you'll just hit the sample size where some people will be drawing good hands. And when the deck draws good hands, it will feel amazing. And so, like, when I look at Radiant Typhoon, I wrote this off as something I did not want to play very early on, despite kind of being the Santoli deck, in my opinion, just because of consistency. But I fully expect it to still be the second best deck because people are going to play it. Enough people are going to play it. They're going to have decent hands, you know, not get super unlucky, and then the deck feels amazing. So I think the consistency is kind of real, but also it's not really. That's more, the consistency is more relevant for a personal deck choice, whether you want to accept that gamble or not, than it will for how it defines the format. I also think
Yes,
a
like
lot of the decks at the top are inconsistent. So
yeah, I mean, like, yeah, when you like to give general context, your individual experience you have X amount of control over, but when you look at the aggregate, like you are going to see the deck perform well because of that. But when you look at your personal consistency and like let's say you run the math on it and you open a start or whatever, 87% of the time, like you may never realize in a 15-round tournament that you're supposed to brick 1 in 8 games, but the enough people playing that deck will have that positive variance that they're going to go through. They brick in a game they were going to lose anyways, whatever. So like that's how the deck still functions in that situation. I'm just saying for me personally, this is why I think that I struggle, Logan.
Yeah, I was gonna add to like the consistency part about this a little bit. So we put like all the numbers into the calculator, and without extravagance, the deck is just under 92% consistent to be able to like full combo, which I think is like pretty reasonable. I think it's probably higher than a lot of people think. And if you like add in the extrav, it goes up like towards 93, which I think is totally reasonable. Um, but the Radiant Typhoon deck overall, I don't know if either of you guys are familiar with like Hearthstone at all. It kind of
Yep.
feels like how in Hearthstone, a lot of the time the best deck in Hearthstone, if you like look online at the stats, it has below a 50% win rate, which I think is like somewhat similar to what Santoli was saying, where like that the average aggregate, I think this deck will have a pretty good win rate of like winning tournaments because the has a little bit higher upside than other decks. And also just like the skill ceiling of the deck is fairly high, especially with like mirror matches and against Dracotil. Like it's not easy to play the deck, in my opinion. It's not easy to play the deck super well and win games that you're not supposed to win. And also just doing that, you know, doing that on DB for 2 or 3 matches a night, or you know, a couple hours a night, is a lot different than doing that for 20 rounds at a YCS.
I think
So
another big thing when talking.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say. So I do think this deck will have really good results, but there's also going to be a lot of people that like play this deck and they just don't understand how it's getting those results.
I think the one big thing to keep in mind as well is like if the deck has a low consistency, people actually have to play hand traps to punish it. And like if you're playing an RT mirror and you open one starter, you feel pretty good. Like I feel pretty happy because it's probably gonna resolve.
100%.
So that's kind of the big thing. So like a lot of the decks at the top are very inconsistent. Like Drake as well. It's not the most consistent thing in the world anymore. Not that it even was before. VS definitely has lost consistency. RT, you know, you have 92% chance of full comboing, but it's like you have a very limited number of second starters. Like all your starters are kind of your second pushes as well. It's not like you have a more cards that let you 2-card combo.
Yeah.
And so if people aren't playing fair hand traps and not trying to hand trap it to death, the deck will feel amazing. That seems like the meta right now. But then, maybe you have a deck that's well positioned to play hand traps. Maybe you're playing Yummy. Maybe you're playing, Razor can fit in some of those hand traps and feel comfortable into half boards just by hand trapping them. And I think if the meta shifts that way, then this deck gets worse. If you don't early on, everyone's just on chummies and breakers, you feel perfectly happy playing RT.
I think that's a really good point. Is if like I'll just Drift posted a video earlier where it's like how to hand trap every deck, and he's like arguing for Yummy obviously because but he's just like showing this where like yeah, if you open 2 hand traps, usually one of them has to be Asher and Tail, but just like generically 2 hand traps against Radiant Typhoon, like the deck is going to struggle pretty often to like actually generate something meaningful. Like even if it can make Varun because it has 2 bodies, like does it have another quick play spell to actually set up Mandate and go from there? Like not always. Um, but yeah, I think that's a really really good point to bring up. Is if your deck can't like you could be me screaming like with my fist like going at the clouds like old man screaming at clouds like this deck is inconsistent, but like if no one's actually doing things to punish it, then I mean myself included, right? If I'm not playing Mortar, Bell, Valor in my deck, then this deck's gonna just pop off because I drew Perulia and I can't really complain because that was a deck building decision I made. So those are good points. Have y'all? I'm not sure how many in-person games y'all have played with it. Do you think my time concerns are valid? I know Logan's probably a little more sensitive to this along with me, but I'm very concerned with long matches. I think Draco Tail is also gonna be susceptible to that, especially in the mirror match. Like that's a deck that you have to know when to scoop very quickly on. Like these top 3 decks, I think, are all decks that can have very grindy game ones and lead to like some pretty questionable or not questionable. Like you have to have a very efficient, time efficient game 2 and 3 play. Game 1 may just take 30-35 minutes on average.
I think it's more player based than deck based. Like I have not gotten a double loss since the time rules have changed. I can't remember last time I even got a draw before that. Like if you play quick and you have practice on the deck, it's not an issue for anything. I think the other thing that people don't do enough is everyone gets very not everyone, but it's like people get agitated and they don't have good friendly manners, friendly Canadian manners. And the issue with that is like if you're have a very serious game, which there's nothing wrong with that, it doesn't really incentivize your opponent to try making like an early concession if you're getting that position or speed up to get there. Like I'm friendly to people that I play because one, I think that's kind of my character, but beyond that, I think it's just beneficial to me as well. Like I think if I acted more like an asshole while I'm playing, then my win rate would go down because I get time stalled or whatever. And I think that if you're having a positive mindset and you play quickly, like you should not be getting double losses, other than the very rare scenario where you have like back-to-back 30-minute grinds.
Yeah, I haven't played at all in person with like post burst protocol, but I I think the time concerns is like real, but I also don't think it's as big of a deal as I thought it was before. Like in hindsight, I think looking back, a lot of the matches where like I got really close to time, uh, it was more so that I wasn't ending games efficiently. I was dragging games on too long because I made small mistakes that ended up, making the games go 1 or 2 turns longer rather than, I just got into a grind game. Like, yes, the grind games are real, but also the grind games I was getting into, I think were just going longer than they needed to. And also I think it's just like once it happens to you once, like ever since then now I'm just like, I'm trying to make all the basic plays like as fast as possible. I'm looking at the clock, I'm making sure I'm trying to sit in a direction where I can see the clock or like have a clock at my table or something. So I think there is a concern, especially if you don't know your combos super well, especially if you don't know other people's cards really well. Which can happen in this format. There's a lot of unique decks that you might have to sit down and read. So I think if you're well studied and you're well prepared, it won't be too much of a problem. But yeah, I'm not that concerned. I wouldn't really take that into account, except for maybe a deck like Lunalight, where like you literally just have like a Liger on your board, and that's more so on your opponent, just not scooping. That could actually be a problem, more so than the other decks.
Yeah,
They
we've
usually
had
have good kill shots though, but yeah, I agree with the
yeah
premise.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, we've had this discussion off the pod, but like I haven't played Lunalight really ever, so I can't really argue this. But I find it very difficult to believe Lunalight will have longer games on average than like Radiant Typhoon.
100%.
I don't
I agree.
I don't think it's longer games on average. I think it just if you have like a chart of the decks that have the longest games, I think Lunalight will have the longest games like overall, and all it takes is having like one of those in a tournament for your tournament to kind of be ruined.
How many
I
Radiant
understand the
Typhoon
premise you're
mirrors?
getting apart, but
What's that?
Sorry, essentially what?
I understand the premise that like is getting off there, but I think it's like a lot of people will scoop in those positions. I think that the
They
number,
should.
same thing like when people first came out with like the time rules first came out, everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna double loss anytime I'm about to lose, and like that just doesn't happen because it's just awkward to be in that position, and like you don't get to close to that time anyways. Usually when you get close to that time, it's usually a good game. And if you are getting double loss, then it might be like, well, maybe you shouldn't do something to piss off your opponent. If they're like being malicious towards it. So I agree the premise. Like I think you can get double losses like that, but I think the overall the problem's a bit overstated. And like obviously I have personal bias because I think I play quick, but
I just look at Radiant Typhoon mirrors and I'm like, there's like if both players are playing the game, there's no shot this game is ending in less than 30 minutes. Like I'm gonna have to watch that more. Like I have to watch that in paper because Dueling Book is not like an comparison in that regard. Like being able, like you don't have to shuffle your deck for like mandate and whatever. So that's definitely like a cheat code in that regard. Like I need to watch Radiant Typhoon mirrors, but yeah, I'm concerned with the consistency, like I said, and I very interested to see what those in-person games look like with Radiant Typhoon over the course of a long tournament, and like how often people complain about double loss, because this is a deck that I would like to see perform well, right? Like consistency aside, like this is a deck that is interactive and not oppressive in terms of its end board. It's a pretty like solid engine deck that I think in general plays like fair interaction. So I would like this to be how the meta shapes. Like even if Radiant Typhoon isn't for me, like this is a deck that I would be like, oh, like I'm happy that this is the best deck. The same way like Draco Tail was like whatever 3 or 4 months ago. I was like, if Draco Tail's the best deck, like it's probably a good format. So I'd like this to be how it shapes up. Obviously, if you play as quickly as Santoli, you never have this problem, but maybe I'm just not that good. So yeah, I think that about wraps up. I think we're going to try and do an in-person episode in Richmond because we're all me, Logan, Rahan are going. Santoli's around to me, try and drag him in. But yeah, any final thoughts before we do this? I don't think we're gonna do any other episodes between now and Richmond, but we'll do like that one episode the weekend. That'll be kind of cool to see everyone in person.
Rogue deck that top eight's an event. Or Rogue deck, yeah, Rogue deck top eight's an event. What are we calling? What's some Rogue deck we put up there? It doesn't have to be like completely Rogue, but not of the top 3 decks.
I gotta go back.
Hmm.
I am biased. I think the Rigel deck is very good. An extremely unfortunate variance in my tournament matches where I like pass with 19 1-card starters multiple times. So like that I can't do anything about that. But I think your initial assessment of Ryziel with like there's a lot of good cards. Like you can play Denko in that deck and it's searchable off 7th Tachyon. Like there's a lot of really good and interesting cards in that deck. That can I think take advantage of Draco Tail. Vanquishal is less oppressive. Like I think it has a solid Vanquishal matchup as well. So that's a deck that I think legitimately has legs. Like you said, like this is a deck that probably struggles in a deck like Yummy because of how many hand traps it is. But if people are playing chummies and like you get a little bit lucky in your variants, then I think that deck could legitimately pop off.
My selection is going to be Mitsurugi, Ogdoadic, Incantation, like pile deck. I think
Incantation?
this deck, incantations are actually like if you're playing a pure Mitsu deck, I think you should probably be looking into those because they are just like it's a 1-card starter to Habakiri, and they work with Impulse or Dark, so um, they're not like
Fair
fantastic
enough.
cards because yeah, they lock you on the field. So you,
Yeah.
like the idea is like you try to tribute it off with Habakiri, which is fine. If your opponent's smart, they should ash the Habakiri instead of the Saji in that situation. So they're not perfect cards, but they're decent cards. And then like I think there's probably a deck out there where you can play like all the Ogdoadics with it and just pile everything together. I know this be like a combo slop deck, and it's fairly good into Perulia. It's fairly good into Fua. Um, and there's you can play like the Planet Pollutant Virus and the Alien Guy, and it's like a soft lock, which is pretty good. So I'll go with some sort of pure Mitsu Ogdoadic variant, something like that.
Reptiles.
We'll top it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a pile.
Reptiles.
yeah, reptiles. Yep, reptiles. That's what they're called.
Alright, so what's your pick?
I don't want to say this, But I'm just gonna say this now, so that if it happens, I'm not gonna, my expectations are already in the ground. I think Malice.
I'm gonna say it's Malice.
Like, I hate this deck so much, but people just aren't playing fair hand traps. Like, I can easily see a Malice player with all those hand traps just sitting down and playing 9 rounds, 10 rounds of Rain Typhoon. They have a good bracket run, and all of a sudden they have all these breakers, and it's just any Malice starter. Oh look, I have full board. Have fun trying to break this. Oh, by the way, your inconsistent deck. I've just drawn 4 other hand traps. Like, I just think it's like one of the few decks that I think is a good hand trap deck at the moment, which I think is there aren't many of them right now. The end board's still completely degenerate. You have Fissure, you have Retail C, it's Malice still. Like,
Wait till you guys find out about Elf Note Malice. They bridge.
But Malice?
yeah, end the podcast. End the podcast.
Elf Note
End
Malice.
the podcast. No one needs to
No.
know about this. We're moving on.
All right. Oh, there was something I was gonna bring up. There was something that I can't remember now. If I figured it out, I'll tweet it out or something. But it was another deck. It wasn't Mermail.
Mermail's a good pick though too.
Fire
That
Kings.
deck's Fire King's good. Yeah, I'm very annoyed because it's an interesting shout.
Dark Lord?
I just heard incantations and I was like, yeah, that's got it.
Your brain shut off.
Yeah, I was just like, it's. Me and Santoli both looked at each other. We're like, I mean, Logan knows way more about this than any of us. So like,
We
obviously,
can't ever comment on anything. Like, ever. People tell
Yeah,
me
right, like, you
incantations
just-
are good. Like, are they worse than horse cards? I don't know. Probably similar power levels. So, like,
Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. It. I think Striker exclusively piloted by like Ryan Yu. Is there anyone? Maybe Ray Dye. Is there anyone else that I could put in that category of like could topless Striker? Just probably like those two. I don't know if there's any Europeans on that. Like, maybe Paolo if he pulls it back out, which wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy. I hate that deck.
I forgot you were on break during that deck. You don't have the
Yeah, maybe the corpse of Manav Dwar will come back and play that deck.
That'd be insane. He comes back, wins the 300th after not playing since the 200th. That'd be a
winning the 200th.
Alrighty. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. Let us know down below what deck you think is going to win the 300th, whichever one you're going to. But yeah, we'll see you at the next one, which will be live in person at Richmond. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.